Hello, I'm Machid Nair from Nair's Aviation Ground School. Welcome to a new series of videos that explain the intricacies of flight training and aviation in general. Flying is fun and exciting. Aviation is a multifaceted field with a wide world of opportunities. The most common start that most pilots have in the field is by earning their private pilot certificate. The private pilot certificate allows the pilot to fly general aviation, light aircraft, for fun or transport in visual conditions. Most pilots then graduate to an instrument rating, which allows the pilot to fly in poor weather conditions without reference to outside views. The private pilot certificate with an instrument rating is the norm for most pilots. Those more interested in flying go on to earn their commercial flight certificate, which allows the pilot to fly as a career. The highest civilian pilot certificate one can earn is an airline transport pilot certificate, which permits the pilot to fly passengers for the airlines. Pilots holding the airline transport pilot certificate are the most experienced of civilian pilots. But before we can earn our wings, we need to learn more about the basics of flight. This video is about the importance of checklist usage. Flying is a dynamic activity, probably one of the most dynamic activities a person can do. With the increased actions that are necessary to ensure safe flight conditions, the usage of checklists is required. We cannot start an airplane in the same carefree manner that we would use to start a car. Even before we fire up the engines, we need to take multiple actions to ensure that everything is safe and sound for the upcoming flight. With so many steps involved in even the most minor of actions, checklist usage becomes an integral part of flight. Before we even set foot on the ramp or onto an airplane, a thorough review and comprehension of the checklist is required. According to the FAA, a checklist is the formal list used to identify, schedule, compare, or verify a group of elements or actions. A checklist is used as a visual or oral aid that enables the user to overcome the limitations of short-term human memory. There are just too many variables in flying to safely rely on memory alone, so the use of checklists are required. Anything and everything to do with flying of aircraft depends on the pilot accomplishing a variety of actions in the proper sequence. The sequence of actions need to be followed with no deviations to ensure that an airplane is properly configured for any particular phase of flight. Furthermore, a lot of the required actions are time sensitive, and the sequence for a phase of flight might have to be started many minutes before the actual phase. Checklists are found in the Pilot's Operating Handbook, or POH. A POH is required in every airplane. Checklists usually have three distinct categories. According to the FAA, these categories are referred to as normal, abnormal, and emergency categories. Checklists are useful for normal flight conditions, but during abnormal and emergency conditions, checklist familiarity and knowledge could mean the difference between a routine flight and a tragedy. Checklists need to be used in specific ways. The most common way to use a checklist is to follow the list step by step, doing all the required actions, then rechecking the steps again to verify that the required actions were done properly. Another popular method is the do-verify method, where the pilot memorizes the checklist beforehand, does the actions that are required, and then verifies that every action was done properly by checking the list. This saves time, improves the pilot's knowledge, and especially aids during abnormal and emergency conditions, where time is very limited. The do-verify method requires more time spent during ground school memorizing the checklist, but drastically improves the pilot's performance. In conclusion, flying requires care, attention, and preparation. While aviation is a very safe method of transport, it is only due to the preparation and safety consciousness of the pilots. And one of the most important aspects of safe flight is the use of checklists to perform a sequence of actions. Checklist usage begins before the pilot enters the airplane and ends long after the flight is completed and the plane is on the ground. This was the first video in a new series of educational aviation videos presented by Nair's Aviation Ground School. Thank you and safe flying.